Herb London is with us, and I'm going to ask him the same question. Now, I'm going to ask you to be a market analyst for a moment. I'm going to ask you to be a financial person. I know that's not your bailiwick, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Let's suppose we did get a deal on Obamacare and a deal on cutting taxes. If we get that by the end of August, where does the stock market go?
I think the stock market goes to 22,000 in a relatively short period of time. I think that is a distinct possibility. My favorite analyst is on the other side of the table, so I very often agree with him. I don't know about the limits, however. I do think that there's always competition. There are always likely changes. And there are too many imponderables in the market to say with any assurance what is going to happen. I think that, I am very sanguine about the market, possibly even Pollyannish. But at the same time, I recognize the fact that there are always limits that occur. It is a kind of asymmetry that occurs in the world, largely because we can't predict what is going to happen on the international stage. We can't be sure about some sort of crisis. All of these things have some bearing on the market.
It's just been a long time since I can remember 5 companies dominating the market and the economy and the future of the economy like the big 5 technology companies do to this. I've never seen that before.
Well, I haven't either. And in fact, I think it's really quite remarkable. But as I has pointed out, they dominate that space. And when you dominate a certain space, you have distinct advantages. Bezos today and Amazon clearly have a market advantage over all competitors. That is certainly something that I think has to be recognized.
Are they going to rein Amazon in? I mean, there's a lot to talk about predatory pricing and getting on antitrust.
Well, and you will have predatory pricing. But I think at the same time, despite the predatory pricing, there's still a space that Amazon holds that will not be challenged in the short term.
Fascinating.
The other side of that equation, however, is that the strip malls in America are dead.
Oh, yes.
And so when you're talking about commercial properties in the United States, that's the other side of the equation. Here we're starting to see a real depression.
That's the right word. Now, we've had some commercial real estate people on the program who are loath to admit that rents are way down, but they are.
They are indeed.
You know this for a fact, I believe.
No question. There's absolutely no question about it. And this is, of course, the other side of the equation. You start looking at this commercial real estate market and you start to worry, my goodness, what am I going to do with these REITs? The REITs are attempting to package a lot of bad properties, put them together and sell them as something that's worthwhile. But by and large, they are not.
Herb, I want to bring this up, that there's talk of a possible deal here on Obamacare taxes and cuts in federal income taxes and business taxes. The deal would be that the taxes on wealthy people under Obamacare stay. You'll still pay the 3 point whatever it is surcharge, et cetera, et cetera. They stay. On the other side of the coin, individuals and businesses will get significant tax cuts from the federal government. That's the nature of the deal which is being talked about at this moment. Is that a deal which you think would fly?
I think that the deal will fly. I think what the Freedom Caucus is looking for is some competitive measures within healthcare. And I think if you had a situation where you lowered taxes, you created an environment where the deductibilities are reduced, where the actual cost of insurance is reduced, there is no doubt that this will pass. Now, again, I don't know exactly when it will happen, and it might be 5 minutes before midnight, but I have every belief that the Republicans will do something before August.
Because they have to do something.
They have to.
Not necessarily before August,
exactly.
but they've got to do something.
There is no doubt. One of the reasons why I think the market is doing well is because McConnell said, you know something, we're not going to take this vacation in the summer. We're going to continue to operate. I think that's a factor. I think that people are looking at this saying, when are the Republicans finally going to get their act together and produce some sort of bill? And I think that this will happen. When you have fewer stocks of this kind and you have the market moving in the direction of ETFs and iShares, there is no question passive investing is going to change the character of the market. And we've seen a lot of signs of that already.
This political turmoil, is that going to get in the way of Obamacare reform and tax cuts?
And there's no question. It's a distraction, but there's no crime. If there's no crime, I don't know what you say if you're members of the Fourth Estate, except you try to build this out of proportion. There will be a bill on health care. That's going to happen. There will be some tax reform, I'm convinced. And that will happen, notwithstanding all of the distractions that you get in Washington, D.C. with the CBSs and the NBCs and the New York Times. I think that that's nothing more but, as Shai has pointed out, a lot of noise.
London, I know you're not a stock picker.
I'm not a stock picker, and I was listening to Fred Barnes, who I generally agree with, and the first part of his comments I thoroughly disagree with. Because politics is a team game, the 6 or 7 or 8 Republicans in the Senate who might oppose the bill at the moment are not going to be poster boys for the failure of the Republican Party come congressional elections in 2018. I can assure you that the Republicans are going to come together precisely because of his point, which seems to be contradictory. If it's a team sport, the team will have to stay together. If Republicans want to be successful, they're going to have to act as a cohesive group. So the notion that somehow there are going to be these people who are going to be outliers, the poster boys who are pictures will appear all over the country as the people who are responsible for the Republican failure, I don't think so. I don't think that's going to happen.
Do you know this from personal experience? Are you on the inside of Republican circles, and this is what?
Well, I can only tell you that the people that I know who have been in the Freedom Caucus and elsewhere who have been somewhat opposed generally find themselves in a position where, with some modest change, they are willing to support the bill. The modest change may vary from person to person, but by and large, that's the sentiment. You're also looking at the jobs report, which clearly suggests that the economy is doing reasonably well. A modest increase in interest rates also means that the financial sector is going to do very well indeed.
We just talked about the reversal of the Federal Reserve, the reversal on the market when you've got interest rates rising, and now we're talking about a complete reversal of America's energy position. Who would have thought just a few years ago that we would be a next net exporter of energy?
Yeah, look at the world 10 years ago. I mean, it's quite remarkable to see the change that's occurred. And when Putin looks at this oil market, he sees oil at $40 a barrel. He cannot sustain his economy under those circumstances.
That's the way of putting it. I like that.
Yeah, it's an interesting way of putting it, but it's also a matter of eliminating the political extortion game that the Russians have been playing.
That's exactly
with Ukraine and Western Europe.
Yeah, it's leverage.
That's exactly right.
Well, we've had quite a show, ladies and gentlemen.
We have.
I'm very glad that you were with us today. Herb London, thanks a lot for being with us. It was great stuff. Pleasure.